Welcome to C++ for Beginners 2025. In this series, we're learning C++ the right way by following the official A Tour of C++ 3rd Edition. Our method for the series will be simple. We'll follow along with the book, break down core concepts, and immediately put them into action with hands-on examples because the absolute best way to learn is by doing. On the screen now, you see the traditional first program for any programmer. Let's break it down line by line. At the top of our program here, we have this include iostream preprocessor directive. Now, we'll cover other preprocessor directives throughout the series, but for this one, it's essentially just going to be able to bring in our code from other files by using this hashtag include. So, essentially, in simple man's terms, this include directive tells our preprocessor, hey, go grab another file that contains useful tools and paste it into my code before we compile anything. So, what does the iostream toolkit do? It essentially gives our program the capability to use input and output streams, which includes printing text to our console. Without this line, our program wouldn't know how to display anything. Next up, we have this int main function, and it's going to be a mandatory starting point for every C++ program. When you run your code, the computer looks for main and starts executing the command inside the curly braces. The int at the beginning signifies that this function will return an integer value when it's done. Next, we have our actual action statement. So we have this std cout, which is the standard character output stream, which basically means your console or terminal window. So the std is part of a namespace, and you can think of this as a family name for a set of tools provided by the standard library. The double angle bracket operator is the stream insertion operator, and a simple way to remember it is an arrow showing the direction of data flow. So we are inserting the text on the right into the cout stream on the left. Following the double angle brackets, we have the string that we actually want to print to our console. So contained within a pair of double quotes, we have the hello world, which is the words that we want to print, followed by the \n, which means we want to print a new line. So anytime you have a string that has \n in it, at that point in the string, you will print a new line. Finally, you'll see this return 0. This line tells our operating system that our program has finished without any errors, and a return value of 0 is generally considered a signal for success. And as a quick note before we compile and run our program, you might also see this std end l, which is also used to create a new line. So it does the exact same thing as the \n, except instead of using \n, we just go ahead and use this end l. All right, now let's go ahead and quickly compile and run our program. So if we just go ahead and compile here and run, we have hello world printing out to our console. All right, now we're going to go ahead and proceed to storing and managing our data, for which we will be using what is known as variables. So I want you to think of variables as labeled boxes in our computer's memory. So the type is going to be telling us what kind of stuff that you can actually put in the box. So in this variable initialization here, the int is the type, so we could put any sort of integer value. Then we have the name of our variable, which you could think of as a label that you throw on the box. And then the value is going to be the actual content. So C++ has several built-in types that we will be going over right now. So the first one is going to be our integer. This is going to be our whole numbers. So things like -5, 0, 42. Then we have our double, which is going to be floating type numbers with decimal points. So anything from 3.14 to -0.01. Then we have our char. So these are going to be single characters. So that'd be in single quotes, something like lowercase a or exclamation point. Then we have our Boolean type values. So these are going to be truth values, which evaluate to either true or false. So now we'll go ahead and walk through some example initializations of each of the different types. Just like you'd expect, using our box analogy, once again, we have the type, then the name, followed by the value that we want to initialize our variable with. And we do this for each of the 4 types that we just went over. Now, another way that we can do this is with the auto keyword, which essentially allows the compiler to infer the type instead of having to actually write the specific type that we want to use. This is particularly useful for things like conciseness, readability, and as we move on to more complex types later in the series, you'll see why using auto can really streamline and make things easier for us. Finally, we'll look at using some basic arithmetic operations. Um, so we can go ahead and initialize our different variables and perform different operations. So we go ahead and initialize A and B with the different values. This will evaluate to 30. Then, as you'd expect, if we do the same thing for doubles and do the multiplication operator, our product will be 12.1. Alrighty, now we'll go ahead and start diving into some actual examples using what we've covered today. So the first thing that we're going to do is what I have as exercise 1 here. So pretty simple, and I highly recommend doing this on your own before watching me go ahead and do it. Even something simple like this, I think it's really important to just go through some of that initial struggle to really help your own learning. But what we'll be doing is simply print hello C++ out to our console. So I'll give you a moment to go ahead and do that, and then I will go ahead and proceed. And I apologize in advance. I am trying to learn Vim commands. That's one of the goals for myself. So, yeah. So we go ahead and declare main. And simply, we just go ahead and put hello C++. Now, some of the tools are making things a lot easier, so I would recommend, if you are doing this, turn off your extensions so you don't have this autocomplete that kind of gives it away, takes away from the learning, in my opinion. And I'll make sure this is off for future videos. Sorry, forgot to save there for a second. But if we go ahead and compile and run our program, there we go. We have hello C printing out. So now we'll go ahead and proceed to exercise 2. And for this one, we're just going to go ahead and print out a multi-line message. So I'll give you a moment to kind of get ahead of me. And again, really recommend turning off these extensions because it makes things a whole lot easier and takes away from the learning, which is the crux of what we're trying to do. But I guess for simplicity and speed, you can already kind of see what it is auto-completing to, and this is what we are looking to achieve. So there's different ways of doing it, but this will go ahead and get the job done. So if we go ahead and save, then we'll go ahead down to our terminal here, and we'll rename this to exercise 2. And hopefully you replace that with your name and your favorite hobby, but that'll get the job done for exercise 2. Now we'll go ahead and proceed to exercise 3. So again, I'll give you a moment to kind of read over the instructions and then do it on your own and hopefully come back. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and take over. So we're going to go ahead and it's once again auto-completing for us. So I really do apologize, but I highly recommend turning off these extensions. It'll be off for the next video. It is helping speed things along, I guess, but for learning purposes, I do not recommend this at all. But if we go ahead and compile now, there we go. All right, finally, we'll go ahead and proceed to exercise 4. again, take a moment, read it over, and we'll go ahead and dive into it. Main. And it's auto-completing once again for us. So hopefully you were able to go ahead and do that on your own without using the extensions. But these, of course, will work as solutions. So if we go ahead and compile, there you go. So thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you were able to learn a good bit about C++ in this introductory lesson. I apologize again for the autocomplete. I'll probably use a different editor or turn off some of the extensions I have in VS Code, so that way we can go ahead and maximize learning and walk through things simpler. But I think for some of the more basic stuff, especially in these first few lessons, it's not the worst thing if you see me do it with the extensions. But as long as you're not using them, I think that'll be the most important thing. So hopefully you got a lot out of today, and I'll see you in the next one.